look. And the third image is someone that actually Well, what an honour to be here, and what a lovely conference it's been. I was told by many mutual friends how good it was going to be, but it's exceeded my expectations. Yeah, I'm Bruce, and I'm an HTML-caholic. I don't usually tell people this, but you will seem like a friendly bunch, unlikely to mock me or give me a wedgie in the break. But I've been an HTML-caholic for 20 years now. I first encountered the web when I was living in Bangkok, Thailand. And I was head of primary and kindergarten at a school. And my left arm and my left leg and my left eye annoyingly stopped working. But I'm a bloke, so I didn't do anything about it. And then a couple of weeks later, I went to the hospital. And very, very luckily, the lady who was the duty neurologist had just come back from a year in the States, where she was working at a facility for people with multiple sclerosis. And she said, "You've got multiple sclerosis." And that was really lucky because, for unknown reasons, the closer you are to the equator, the incidence of MS is reduced. So it's very, very difficult to get it diagnosed in Thailand. And they didn't have any English language information for me. They were very kind, and they photostated some pages from a medical textbook full of encouraging photographs of autopsied brains, which didn't really make me feel great as I was lying on my hospital bed thinking I was going to die. But when I got out of hospital and I taught myself to walk again, downstairs from me, this is 99, downstairs there was an internet cafe. So I went in because I wasn't afraid of computers. I'd been a computer programmer for AT&T in the 80s after my graduation in English literature and drama. And yeah, I have a career, but it's in the sense of careering downhill and just like crashing into things. But I went into this internet cafe and I typed in multiple sclerosis into Alta Vista, which is like Google but powered by Steam and in black and white. And out popped this thing called Julie's Joint. And it was a website. It was basically a forum, a PHP BB or something like that. And it was for people around the world who had just been diagnosed with MS, supporting each other. And there were people from Norway, New Zealand, Canada, you know, all different walks of life, all different countries, all supporting each other through this magic of the web. And I thought, this is an amazing communication medium. This is something new to humanity. I want to be a part of this. So I left Thailand and came back to live in Birmingham, Brummies of the World Unite, and applied for a job and got a job. And I was asked to set up a book publishing company for these weird people who aren't Flash designers but aren't C++ coders. What do we call them? We'll call them web professionals. And so for the last 20 years, I've basically been engaged in persuading, cajoling, bullying, and begging people to keep the web free and open for all. So that's but too much information about me already. And I would now work for Smashing Magazine, who is an online magazine for web developers and designers. And I'm in charge of membership. And this is the membership. God, I'm funny. I was the guy telling the joke about about Ferrero Rocher yesterday. So if you want any jokes, come up and see me. I just found some new doodling software, so I thought, fuck it, I'm just going to use that to make my slides less boring. But this is called Accessibility Back to the Future, because I think in our race to make the web more and more app-like, we are forgetting the simplicity that is inherent in the design of the web right from the start. We're overcomplicating it, and thus we're locking people out. And that's blooming wrong, actually, so don't do it. Thank you for coming for my TED Talk. You all know this guy, Sir Uncle Timbo, as I call him. I can call him that because he actually asked me to sign a copy of my HTML5 book. Oh, yeah, yeah. Don't bother to buy it. You can find illegal copies all over the place on the web. But Sir Uncle Timbo said, as we all know, this is for everyone. And it was. This is the first ever web page. Anybody here actually a web developer? I don't know how much techie jargon. Okay, so if you are, maybe I'm going to be a bit superficial, but I don't want the people who aren't web developers to be left out. This was, excuse me, this was responsive out of the box. Look, if I change the browser width, it just all reformats. Nothing fancy here. This is how the web was designed. And if I hit my tab button, I can go through the links. And if I click space or enter, that link is activated. The first ever web page running now in today's browser, completely responsive and accessible. But web developer chums, we broke it. We broke it of our own volition. One of the first things we did was we broke it by having the image tag. Mark Andreessen, who was in charge of Netscape and is now some mad venture capitalist loony, he proposed a new optional HTML tag. The only requirement argument is the source. There's no provision there for alternate text at all. Alternate text didn't come into HTML2 until 95, and this was proposed in 93. So for 2 years, everybody, of course, put lovely images in their web pages, and there was no provision for accessibility. That's one of the ways that we broke it. If you are a web developer, I want you to know these are alt attributes. You can probably see that I'm a hand-wringing Amnesty International supporting, Guardian reading, pinko commie. But if you call it alt tags, death is too fucking good for you, to be honest. And we broke it in other ways. We broke it by not clicking the button properly. We broke it because we thought, everybody's got a widescreen monitor now, so we're all going to have fixed-width websites. And then 2 years later, everybody came and went, look at my iPhone. We broke it by choosing bad contrasts, bad colors, and bad fonts. We broke it by insisting upon a pixel-perfect layout, as if the web were print. It's not. We broke it by lack of captions for videos. We broke it by deliberately choosing to turn off keyboard accessibility, even though it was always accessible out of the box. We broke it by removing the focus indicator. Lots of people tab through a website, and by default, there's a ring in the browser showing you what the current thing you're focused on. But if you are evil, you can turn it off. But nobody here is evil, right? Apart from Rowan. And now, we're breaking it with our obsession with tools. Tools are great, but tools are a means to an end. The amount of web development jobs I see advertised, which list all the tools. You have to be familiar with Web, Hubpack, Mbengular, Angular, blah, 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 blah. But these are just tools. I'm not against them. I was in Bucharest and I saw this graffiti that says, React, run, but I'm not afraid of React. It's just JavaScript. It's just a means to an end. If you want to use React, Mbengular, Bonestrap, Hubpack.js in your projects, knock yourself out. Do it. But just remember, these are just tools. Yes, they're well-known tools, but nevertheless, they're just tools. You need to... Anybody American in the audience? Where are you from?
Jersey, New Jersey.
I'm sorry. I heard you, I'm just commiserating. We need to refocus on the raw materials of the web rather than the tools we use to transform those raw materials. And the raw materials are JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. Look, It's possible for Brendan Ike, who invented JavaScript, an HTML alcoholic, and how come William Lee, who invented CSS, to get together and have a pint without fighting. Okay, 4 pints later, we did have a bit of a punch-up. But it's possible. But I see too many people now who are full-stack developers, obsessed with JavaScript, obsessing on the wrong things. This is an article, I've deliberately taken away the author's name because I'm not focusing upon him or her. This is indicative of an industry-wide trend that we need to crush. And these are the top 10 things you need to know to be a full-stack JavaScript web developer. The top 4, you need to have a fundamental understanding of JavaScript. Of course, you can't do full-stack JavaScript development, or full-stack any web development for that matter, without learning JavaScript itself. The next thing apparently you need to know is a front-end framework, Angular, Ember, the other one, React. Sorry. Then you need to know Bootstrap 4. I didn't even read Bootstrap 3. I haven't even seen Bootstrap 2. I heard Bootstrap 1 was pretty good. And now you need to know HTML and CSS. But he says, or she says, as for HTML, there's not much to learn right away, and you can kind of learn as you go. And before you make your first templates, you might want to know the difference between a span and a div. But only because that will help you when you're trying to fiddle with your CSS code. And this dismissive attitude towards the fundamental foundational technologies that power the web is what's breaking it now. Cool, I'm on a soapbox. Semantics are your flux capacitor. These are the things that power the web. This is simply, HTML is a vocabulary of 120, 130 words. And you need to know what those words mean. Just to upset Andrew, because we've been here many times, pusillanimous, parsimonious, miscellaneous, antidissociable and deoxyribonucleic acid. Get on with it, man. You have to know what those words mean before you use them. This is not just about philosophical purity. We've all seen this in a web page. Check if you don't want not to opt out of cancelling or stopping you sending you spam forever. Okay? Everybody's put this on a web page. And these two look identical apart from a tiny bit of spacing there. But one at the top is a checkbox and a span. And it's really hard. Look, I'm clicking in that massive label. But the only way I can activate the checkbox is if I actually click into it. With this, because I'm using a label, I can click anywhere in here, and it will fill in that. So it gives me a much greater hit area out of the box. This is great if you're using a keyboard rather than a mouse, because you can tab into the label, press enter or space, and it activates. It's great if you've got big, chunky, multiply sclerotic fingers and you're on a bouncy train with a small touchscreen phone. Or even if you don't have multiply sclerotic fingers, you just have arthritis, or you're just on a bouncy train on a phone. It just works, it's free, if you choose the right HTML element, if you choose the right semantic for the job. That's all. It's so simple, and yet because we're obsessing with tooling and JavaScript, HTML is kind of ignored as an afterthought. Another thing is most of the frameworks will just omit divs, a div tag, which means, by definition, nothing. So these have no inherent meaning. You can put nice colors on them and you can position them, but they have no meaning. But if you chose the correct semantic, header, nav, main, footer, this has loads of utility for people with disabilities. For example, all screen reader technology have a button that will take you straight to the main content. Therefore, somebody navigating through your site doesn't have to listen to the header and the navigation on every page. If you don't need this, it is entirely invisible to you. If you do need it, It is invaluable. A survey of screen reader users, if these landmarks are available, 25% will use them whenever they're present, 18% use them often, and 28% use them sometimes. This is absolutely invaluable if you need it, and it is completely invisible to you if you don't need it. And it is trivial to code as long as you understand the language that you're making your tools emit. If you have a component library, an Angular, Ember, React, whatever, there's probably a component that just vomits out that header. And the person writing that component only needs to choose the header element rather than div class equals header, and it will just work better. But because people don't value HTML, they don't learn it, they don't do it. And accessibility also gives you future-proofing. Now, I used to read tarot cards in Turkey as a job. I did, actually. I played guitar in the night time and read tarot cards in the daytime, but you can't really tell the future. Even I can't tell the future. But in 2010, I was interested in this new standard HTML5 that was forming. And I tried to read the specs, but I'm frankly even more stupid than I look, and I couldn't understand the specs. But I had a website that's made in WordPress, and so I just decided to experiment with HTML5 by turning my website into HTML5, trying to understand how it worked, and giving feedback to the spec authors. So in 2010, I was surrounding each article with an article element, and I was using headers and footers and marking up bits with item prop equals title. And frankly, this satisfied me from a philosophical purity perspective. It was useful to help me learn, and it was useful to the HTML5 working group to get feedback from people actually trying to understand the spec. But it didn't bring me any extra benefits until last year, when at the Apple Fest, or whatever they call it, they announced the new iteration of the Apple Watch. And the Apple Watch will use these tags to displace things better. So they say if you use an article element, it will put it better in the display. And in order to show you things like the title and the author, it's using those item prop HTML that I used. The figure and the fig caption element are also kind of provoke the iWatch into displaying it in a certain way. And with forms, if I say input type equals tell, because the Apple Watch is small, it gives you the whole screen for input. So this is really useful. Input type equals date, and that's a select. In a desktop browser, you probably don't get a special keyboard, but it gives you validation. In a mobile browser, it will pop up, if you say input type equals email, it will give you a keyboard with a dot and an at and probably a .com button. It gives you this out the box. You don't have to write this in JavaScript. You just tell the browser what your thing is, and it knows what device it's on. It will do the necessary thing. Out of the box, for free, thanks to the power of the amazingly simple but nevertheless insanely powerful language called HTML. I had to give these slides in before we came down, so I didn't know what other people were going to be talking about or what the kind of messaging was going to be, but it looks like I lucked out and reiterating the message of the people yesterday. Accessibility isn't just about hugging a cripple, okay? It's not just about being lovely to people with MS or blind people. If you make your sites accessible, they will be better for everybody, and I have stats to prove it. There are some good stats, came out of Legal and General many years ago. If you look on my website, I can tweet a link. A guy called Mike Davis, who was head of the web team at Legal and General, which is a big insurance company here in the UK, they were worried about being sued under the Disability Discrimination Act. So they made their website accessible, and they found they were getting 90% more conversions. They were getting that kind of order of magnitude of more sales, and the ROI was that they paid for this accessibility work in 1 year. Those stats are available. Recently, there was a study done at a university. High conformance with accessibility guidelines may provide benefits to users without disabilities. The word may is, academia. They don't like to be definite about anything. And also the study was pretty small, hence their kind of weasel words. These people whose names begin with S, Messrs. They did a study. They did a study with 61 participants without disabilities, and they used 3 websites, one with low accessibility, one with medium accessibility, one that was very good for accessibility. A high level of web accessibility led to better performance, i.e. task completion time and task completion rate, than low or very low accessibility in people who had no accessibility needs. That's the crucial part. If you're taking photographs, I'll tweet a link to these slides when I get back to Birmingham and sober up, so kind of Tuesday. Likewise, high web accessibility improved user ratings, perceived usability, aesthetics, workload, and trustworthiness compared to low or very low web accessibility. Fact, proven by science at the University of Science in Science Land, or Switzerland. But still, we pride ourselves on building a web that is basically a house of cards. This, by the way, is from 1901. It's the first photograph I could find of a house of cards. So there. And we shouldn't do this because 13 million requests for JavaScript will time out. That's according to BuzzFeed. And BuzzFeed is, very much a European, American consumed website. You don't surf with JavaScript turned off, but sometimes, in some circumstances, JavaScript isn't working for you. My chum Stuart Langridge made this website. You can Google it. Everyone has JavaScript. No, they don't. Some people do not have JavaScript by choice because they live in a country where bandwidth is so constrained they have to use a browser without JavaScript. Some people don't have JavaScript because they're on the tube or walking on a Friday night in central London when the networks are congested. There are many, many reasons. I wrote a blog post about this. It went to Reddit. Oh, my God. Somebody said, this article suggests people did not know that input type equals submit doesn't need JavaScript. I thought this was common knowledge. Is it not? It is not. And it's disgusting that it isn't. That's the point. I agree. I'm not going to call it disgusting because it's wrong to call people disgusting. But if you are a full stack developer, if you are a web developer, and you do not know what you can do without JavaScript, you are not a web developer. You are a JavaScript developer who just happens to be shitting things out onto the web. That's double T, Andrew. And this is the problem. This is the amount of JavaScript we're shitting into the plumbing. From 2011 to 2019, the median mobile website has 384 kilobytes of JavaScript. Stop it! Alex Russell, sinister mastermind at Google, and a mate of mine, says, we cannot continue to use as much JavaScript as is now normal and expect the web to flourish. To get this fixed, we need to confront the developer experience bait and switch. Tools that cost the poorest users to pay wealthy development are bollocks. He's American, so he didn't say bollocks, but I know him, that's what he meant. Because in order to make wealthy developers' lives easier, we are literally charging people more to use our websites. This is the problem. There has been a rise of the smartphones. If anybody wants to make a sci-fi movie called Rise of the Smartphones, I will give you this thing I made with my legendary Photoshop skills. And of course, rise of the smartphones has been basically like this, a game changer. It has totally transformed the way that people use the web. But smartphones across the world are overwhelmingly Android. They are overwhelmingly low cost and low spec. Last year at Google I/O, they revealed the figures that 25% of new Android shipments are with 512 meg or less. They have very little RAM, very limited storage. They're dual SIM, actually, for many, many reasons. And that sends people back to the treadmill. To afford entry-level mobile broadband for a month costs a German person 1 hour's work on average national wage. It costs an American 6 hours on national wage for a 512 megabyte mobile broadband plan. It costs a Brazilian 34 hours work on minimum wage. A Nigerian works for 28 hours to afford that. These figures are from the World Bank, by the way. I'll tweet out all the links. So in order to make your lives easier for your elaborate tooling stack, you are making people work harder. And that is discourteous. In Nigeria, the data needed to watch 2 hours of online video a day costs more than sending a child to school for a month. Yes, your video, your hero video, it's fucking lovely, I love it. But it's not lovelier than educating a child, I guarantee you. Your React application will never load faster than 1.1 seconds on an average phone in India, no matter how much you optimize it. Your Angular app will always take 2.7 seconds to boot up. And this is a problem of accessibility. There are 7 billion people in the world. 1.1 billion are like us with fast internet access. There are 3.2 billion internet users, 5.2 billion phones, and 7 billion people within the range of a cell tower. There are loads of people still to come to the web. And they're not all in Indonesia, China, India. There are 41 million people in Turkey, 48 million in Thailand, 51 million in the US who are not on the web. By 2100, which is a bit late for me, but you're all younger and more gorgeous, so you might make it. By 2100, 50% of the world will live in these 10 countries. And only one of it is what you might call a developed nation. But in these countries, infrastructure looks like this. This was out of my window in my apartment in Bangkok. This is what infrastructure looks like in most of the world. The networks are as crowded and overloaded as this lorry I photographed in the Rajasthani desert in northern India last time I was there. In India, 96,000 of the 736 cell towers are 3G enabled, but only 35,000 have a fiber optic connection to the backbone. If you've ever been in India and tried to use the web, you will know what I mean. If you've been to the Philippines, which is hundreds of islands, or Indonesia, which is thousands of islands, or one of the African countries that's far away from the coast, because all the cables come into the coast, you will know what slow internet is like, and you will know what massive amounts of JavaScript does to your connection. The World Bank said making the internet universally accessible and affordable should be a global priority. Because developing countries, and I dislike the term, this is a quote, developing countries are home to 94% of the global offline population. And this matters. This matters because there are many, many countries where it might be miles to walk for medical care. But if you have a feature phone and a copy of Where There Is No Doctor translated into one of the hundreds of languages that it's available in, this is first-line medical care. There was an experiment done. They gave a village a feature phone and a solar-powered charger. And infant mortality and maternal death in labour dropped because people could access first-line medical care. This is not more important than your tool chain. This is not more important than the cool framework of today. There are people for whom school textbooks are simply unaffordable, but a feature phone gives you access to the web and gives you access to World Reader, who are in 47 countries. They're used in 551 libraries. They have 500,000 monthly readers. They have 7.5 million readers since they started, and tens of thousands of science textbooks translated into lots of local languages for free. This is what the web brings to people. It's not just about saying lol at your mate's cat video, funny though that is. There are people across the world who live in horrible, despotic regimes where having the wrong political opinion, the wrong religion, or being attracted to the wrong gender can get you locked up or worse. And these are people for whom the web is their lifeline to the free world. As an Egyptian internet activist said, if you want to liberate a country, give them the internet. Now, I know that is hippie bullshit, so I'll stop. If you want some numbers, a great big consultancy firm, McKinsey, said, an increase in internet maturity similar to the one experienced in mature countries over the past 5 years creates an increase in real GDP per capita of $500 on average. 5 years. It took the Industrial Revolution of the 19th century 50 years to produce the same result. We have in our hands, fellow web developers, the greatest means to liberate and empower people across the world. But we fuck it up to make our lives and our jobs easier. You don't have to be a superhero. This is me in my best superhero outfit. Thanks for the pants, Rowan. All you need to do is to remember one thing. Keep it simple, stupid. Don't use elaborate JavaScript frameworks when choosing the right word, the right semantic in HTML will give you all that stuff for free and be much smaller down the wire. Don't throw away the advantages of the simple languages of HTML and CSS because it doesn't feel enough like computer science, which you learned at university. Because the web isn't about that. I love this, keep it simple, stupid. I love the fact that its acronym is KISS, because KISS is a human thing. It's not just a romantic thing. It would be a kiss of reassurance or a kiss of friendly greeting. Because you need to see people and not problems. If you're accommodating people's disabilities, if you're bolting on some aria with JavaScript afterwards, you're seeing problems, you're not seeing the people whom you serve. Because the web is not computers. The web is not clouds. The web is not a series of tubes. The web is these African women. The web is this blind guy in Toronto. The web is these women I photographed on a bus in Bangladesh. The web is this woman in a wheelchair in Taipei. The web is this farmer and his granddaughter I stayed with in Cambodia. The web is these bros at a football match. The web is these women on a beach I went to in southern Kerala. The web is this guy with Down syndrome on the metro in New York. The web is people. It's for everybody. Thank you.
It's like when you wake up in the morning,